There will be now an opportunity for a silence prayer and meditation. Thank you, honorable members. Before we proceed, I would like to remind you that the virtual mini plenary is deemed to be in the center of Parliament, and it constitutes a meeting of the National Assembly for debating processes only. In addition to the rules of the virtual sittings, including the rules of debate apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Assembly. Members should equally note that anything said in the visual platform is deemed to have been said to the House and may be ruled upon. All members who have logged in shall be considered to be present and are requested to mute their microphones and only unmute when recognized to speak. This is because the mics are very sensitive and will pick up noise which might disturb the attention of other members. When recognized to speak, please unmute your microphone and connect your video. Members may make use of the icons on the bar at the bottom of the screens, which has an option that allows a member to put his or her hand up, to raise her hand on points of order. The Secretariat will assist in electing the chairperson to members requesting to speak. When using the visual system, members are urged to refrain from or desist from unnecessary points of order or interjections. Honorable members, we shall now proceed to the order, which is debate of vote on Vote 23 Defense Adjustment Appropriation Bill. Now I recognize the Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister for Defense. The Honorable Minister. Was I audible, honorable members?
Yes.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Can you hear me now, Chairperson?
You are very much audible now, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chairperson, Deputy Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, Honorable Makwetla, Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Defense, Comrade Cyril Xaba, Co-Chairperson of the Joint Standing Committee on Defense, Comrade Xaba. As I stand before you on this occasion to present our budget vote 23 on the 23rd of July 2020, on day 119 since lockdown, and at a time when our country and the world is seized with the fight against Corona, I wish to pay tribute and honor to our stalwart and military veteran, Tata Mlangeni, a recipient of the Military Veterans Decoration in Platinum Class 2 during August 2012. He was also an honorary colonel at the South African Army Headquarters Unit and has also had a reserve force unit named after him, the Old South African Irish Regiment in Kensington. Chair, the men and women in our armed forces have been in the eye of the storm of the coronavirus pandemic, assuming roles that have been arrogated to them by the Commander-in-Chief, acting in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution and the Defense Act. Our role as the defense establishment has been to ensure support for the fight against the pandemic through the National Department of Health by providing the required expertise inherent in our South African military health services. We've provided health professionals across the spectrum in all provinces, drawn from the regulars, reserve force, and volunteers. The healthcare professionals provide services to our own members and the National Health Department through primary healthcare teams for screening, testing, and tracing purposes across the country. Mass quarantine sites, for instance, in the KZN, Western Cape, Gauteng, and Limpopo, respectively. Decontamination teams, to mention but a few tasks. As I speak on this debate, a team of our military health professionals have been deployed to the Eastern Cape at the request of the Premier. That's additional to what we already have there. That is just one part of the range of deployments we have been involved in. We are central to the deployment of forces and is integral part of the enforcement of the national disaster. In addition to the military health elements, there are a range of capabilities that have been deployed, including but not limited to engineers for bridge building, which is an ongoing program, and water purification in various communities, air defense and maritime capabilities, landward capabilities for security, and direct support to the police services and other government entities. We've since the beginning of the declaration of national disaster by means of lockdown, run all these operations related to the COVID-19 under the ambit of Operation Notella, which is lockdown. Honorable members, let us pause for a moment to examine what has all this meant in real terms from a financial and human resource point of view in our deployment of forces. One of the key pillars is defense in support of our people. On the 24th of June this year, Minister of Finance announced that the special defense budget allocation for the fight against COVID was an amount of 3 billion. These funds will be for the operational costs associated with the fight against the pandemic, as well as the procurement of PPEs. For our purpose, this will go through costs already incurred and others still underway, including repatriation flights, quarantine costs, deployment of reserve force, air support operation, quarantine clinics, medical equipment, and ambulances. As of the 15th of July 2020, the financial authorities were issued with 1.7 billion, of which 906 million has been paid. I wish to take this opportunity to thank National Treasury for the fight against the COVID-19 allocation, which comes as a silver lining to the pandemic. We will ensure that this as well leaves a legacy project. This allocation is made against the background of a declining defense budget and capabilities. Despite these severe budget cuts, we are doing all we can to fulfill our constitutional mandate. Honorable members, this will not be for long, for we are now in a situation where our budget has been cut beyond the bone. The Special Defense Account, a key instrument to enable us to execute our approved defense acquisition project, is nearing its demise. This means that major acquisition projects for the land workforces and maritime forces are under serious threat from non-completion. These budget reductions continue to have an adverse effect on the SANDF capability, sustainability, and modernization of defense prime mission equipment and the defense industry as a whole. AMSCO will also have to reduce projects from 39 down to 15 in the current financial year and 0 in 2021-2022. These reductions will negatively affect the Defense Review 2015 milestone of arresting the capability decline. There will also be the general loss of capacity within the defense industry as a result of the reduced DoD spend. Between 2017 and 2020, there have been losses of 7 billion in revenue, a significant dent on the GDP. Workforce has declined from 15,000 to 12,000 in the same period. These developments, Chairperson and honorable members, will also result in the inability to meet future SANDF requirements for critical capabilities. It will also hamper support to national government imperatives and implementation of the Defense Review of 2015. Honorable members, the function and activities of the defense establishment have not stopped due to COVID-19. Defense is still deployed in domestic and international obligations as part and parcel of its mandate. In real terms, this means the commitments have increased over and above what we already had under normal circumstances. In our deployment in the DRC under the MONUSCO mandate, we've been central in the fight against negative forces through the Force Intervention Brigade, of which we are lead nation, which includes, of course, Tanzania and Malawi. We shall be further engaging with SADC and the United Nations in the immediate period about the planned reconfiguration of the FIB. Just like the rest of the country and the world, we have continued support to our troops in the midst of the pandemic. In fact, they are also faced with Ebola epidemic in the DRC. We continue to take measures to ensure their safety as they continue with their deployment. It is also with honor and pride, Chair, that I announce that one of our senior officers, Brigadier General Jacob, has been appointed a force commander of the Force Intervention Brigade, taking over from our own Major General Njabulo Ndebele. As the budget continues to decline, Chair, we are forced to scale down on our capabilities. We, for instance, over the years indicated that the effective border safeguarding we needed for effective, we need at least 20 companies, but we still have 15 and will not have that in the foreseeable future. But it is good to note that, Chairperson, honorable members, that the President has now signed the Border Management Authority Bill, which will really strengthen and enhance our work of border safekeeping and border management as a cluster, chaired and led by the Department of Home Affairs. Honorable Chair and members, on governance matters, we continue to have audit qualifications that we are addressing in earnest within the department, working closely with the AG and National Treasury for a turnaround, whilst ensuring consequence management. During 29th Defense Budget vote, I had committed that there will be action plans monitored continuously. To this end, the Internal Audit Division was tasked to monitor the implementation plans for corrective measures across services and divisions. We're striving for a clean audit and have been able to resolve the audit qualification on movable, tangible capital assets with the concurrence of the Auditor General and Treasurer. The Internal Audit Division is fully functional as is assisting the department in strengthening internal controls and procedures under the guidance of our Audit Committee, whom we wish to thank. Honorable members, we deliver this budget. As we deliver this budget, we are seized with a different national crisis that requires attention and action from all of us, men and women. The country continues to suffer under a scourge of gender-based violence wreaking havoc in our country, and the South African National Defence Force is not immune to this scourge. I have consistently condemned the prevalence of sexual abuse and exploitation amongst members of the SANDF deployed in the eastern part of the DRC. Unfortunately, these cases are not confined to members of the SANDF deployed externally. We have since appointed a ministerial task team to investigate the legal frameworks in place, the procedural processes and reporting and managing cases and sentences meted out in finalized cases. This is an effort to develop a comprehensive response for the South African National Defence Force to protect all its members as well as civilians in deployment areas against such incidents. It is expected that before the end of this year, the team shall have finalized the report and shall have presented the recommendations, some of which will put transitional arrangements in place to take so that we can protect the victims which came forward and entrusted them with their cases. I expect this team to be finalized soon. Chair, I wish to express gratitude to the Department of Defense for the lifeline which it has extended to the Castle of Hope. They've responded generously and transferred a relief funding of 3 million to the castle. Finally, Chair, I wish to conclude by honoring the Secretary of Defense, Dr. Sam Kulube, who is officiating in his last defense budget vote, having been at the helm since 2012. He has also harnessed the JCPS cluster, as well as leading senior officials in support of the cluster in all of government. He's also been leading in the fight against COVID-19 and completes 45 years of service to the people of South Africa as he goes on retirement. The president, and I'm happy to announce this, has since appointed Ambassador Sonto Kuju as our new Secretary of Defense, effectively from the 1st of August. I also take this opportunity to express my gratitude to the outgoing AMSCO Board of Directors, who have done a sterling job in steering our Defense Acquisition Agency for the previous period. Steps are underway now to appoint a new Board of Directors. I wish to extend my appreciation to the committee, to both the Portfolio Committee and the Joint Standing Committee. I also wish to extend my appreciation to the men and women in uniform, led by the Military Command Council, and their civilian colleagues, led by the Secretariat Council, and the entire defense establishment for the support which they have provided me in the execution of my responsibility. I thank you, honorable members.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We wish you 100% speedy recovery as well. Now I recognize Honorable VC Xaba Nunkos. Honorable Member Nunkos. Our apology, honorable members, we're all frozen. Now I recognize Honorable Xaba. Am I audible on? Honorable members. Okay, okay. No, we're all frozen. No, I'm going to by attend IT, the supporting infantry, yes, Am I now audible, honorable members? Honorable members, am I audible now? Okay, thank you very much, honorable members. Our apology on that. Thank you very much, honorable the minister, and we wish you a speedy recovery. Now I recognize honorable VC Xaba. Honorable Xaba. I'll phone the front desk again to assist us, the front table. Honorable Xaba, I seem not to see him here on the list of the attendees.
No, Chair, you can move, please.
No, 1 second. No, it doesn't work that way, honorable member.
It does. We can't wait forever. We can't wait.
Honorable member.
Chair. No. Chair.
Honorable member, allow me.
Chairperson.
Honorable Chairperson Lesoma, may I please address you? May I please address you on a point of order?
And I will request that all honorable members, that you may, honorable member.
Honorable Chairperson, I think we have a problem here because the procedure is that we must raise hands rather than shouting. But who is noting our hands? Because my hand has been up for the last maybe 5 minutes and nobody is noting our hands. And perhaps we want to assist in the frustration that members are actually showing. I understand it. It comes out of, what is happening here.
Okay, thank you, honorable member. Honorable.
Chair, can I also say something, Chair?
No, honorable members, I'm able to see the hands which are up here, and your hand, honorable Panza, is not up. May I apologize on behalf of the IT, because the IT that had a problem, all of us were frozen. Okay. And it might be in that process, honorable Xaba then was locked out. Honorable Xaba.
Chair, then we can't wait forever. I'm saying let's move. We can come back to him. But you can't.
No, honorable member.
Forever.
No, honorable member, you are going to use the hand. Point of order, honorable member, you are going to raise your hand. If you
I'm raising. Can you recognize me? I'm raising. I've raised.
Honorable Monto,
yes.
I'm recognizing you. You
Chair,
may speak,
I'm
honorable
saying
member.
Honorable Xaba for a very long time. If he's kicked out, we can't sit here and hope that he's going to log on within a second. Let's move to the program. You can still come back to him.
Is that a point of order? Honorable members, I'll now recognize Honorable Marais from the DA. Honorable Marais.
Thank you, Chair. If only I can be allowed onto my screen. Chairperson, can you please arrange that my my video can show?
Can you just, honorable member, we can operate it from your side.
It says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it, so it must be changed. But let me start.
Honorable member, I'm giving you a chance to start. I'm timing you. Thank you.
Chairperson, the Department of Defense and its defense capability has been deteriorated over many years, surely in part as a result of sharp declining budget allocations, but mainly because of poor management and the lack of reform and reprioritization of the expenses by both the executive, including the Minister and the President, and the defense management. I've raised the need for urgent and decisive intervention, and while the Defense Minister has acknowledged the need to reform and a review of the mandate and focus, does it not seem that there is an appetite for this from both the Minister and the Department? There are so many dedicated and excellent soldiers who will give their life to South Africa. However, often they seem to have been left on their own. We honor them and express our sincere appreciation to them and their families, especially those who have been deployed to help and contain the COVID-19 pandemic. It was such a disappointment to experience the irresponsible utterances and ill discipline by senior officials, including the Minister, the Chief of the SNDF, the Chief of Staff, and the Chief of Joint Operations, when they justified and supported the manhandling and abuse of civilians in their neighborhoods by a few soldiers during the last 4 months in supposedly support of the police to fight the pandemic. It therefore came as no surprise that some soldiers followed this example, clearly as they believe they will be protected by the senior management. This was best illustrated by the Collins Causa case, where the Chief of the SNDF allowed an investigation and outcome at the speed of light. Then it resulted in the embarrassing difference by the SNDF and the Minister on the status of the case. The case was poorly handled and conducted. It ignored thorough investigation of all the facts and exonerated the soldiers in an embarrassing way that is perceived to be a cover-up. In the process, the military ombuds investigation was undermined and the Audi Ultram Partem rule was totally ignored. Our soldiers have been sent into urban areas without adequate and specialized training to operate in an urban environment. Soldiers should not be sent into our streets and abuse the civil liberties of our citizens, who are not our enemies. The exposure to this COVID-19 virus was not properly foreseen, and as a result, a number of soldiers got infected and did not receive speedy attention. The defense budget was already in a desperate situation with an expected 3 billion rand overrun, mainly as a result of human resource costs, which is now more than 60% of the total budget compared to the 40% as prescribed. The emergency budget will exacerbate this predicament, where firstly the department requested an additional 4.5 million rand. The Treasury only approved 4.1 million rand, and of that only 2.88 billion rand will actually be new and extra funds. In reality, the department will experience an additional shortfall of 1.6 billion, which must be added to the original 3 billion rand. Keep in mind the additional budget request and allocation was only for the deployment until 26th of June. With the extended deployment cost of 1.5 billion rand until the end of September and the expected further extended deployment towards the end of the year, this shortfall predicament will become a catastrophe and an international embarrassment very soon. Our once proud Air Force and Navy fleets are falling apart as no funding is available via the Special Defense Account to replace and maintain strategic aircraft, our frigates and submarines, and to complete projects Biro and Hotel. With a further reliance on the reserve force to not only fight the pandemic, but to assure compliance with our strategic operations, especially Ops Corona and Mistral, we must expect much bigger trouble and budget shortfalls. Our soldiers should primarily be utilized and employed to protect our land, sea, and air borders, the integrity of South Africa, and not to fight civilians in our neighborhoods. Our land borders with Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Lesotho should be a much bigger priority, where we urgently require extra deployment of properly resourced companies to prevent the illegal border crossing movement of persons and goods. We are facing the challenge of a destabilizing SADC region by the ISIS cells in Cabo Delgado, and while many acknowledge the threat, nobody wants to discuss it. There are contradicting responses by the Minister to our committee, Minister Mthembu to the Joint Standing Committee on Defence, and also Minister Pandor. Despite promises of a closed session meeting on this subject, nothing has materialized. The Defence Force role in Ops Notlela must be scaled down and not fight the civilians in the streets, but provide services like cordoning off of specific areas, assisting with roadblocks, and providing humanitarian relief by especially the military health services, the Air Force, and the engineering formations. It is now up to you, Minister, and also the Commander-in-Chief to act urgently to save the Defence Force and comply with the constitutional prescriptions to protect our nation. This emergency budget will not be money well spent and will speed up the further deterioration of our once proud Defence Force. Give me the opportunity to express my appreciation to the SecDef for the services that he has delivered, and we wish him a prosperous and a well-deserved retirement. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Now I recognize Honorable Fanya from the EFF. Honorable Mafanya. Over to you.
Greetings to the President of the EFF, Julius Sello Malema, the Deputy President, Flo Chibambo, Commissars and Fighters. I also wish the Minister a speedy recovery from this dreadful disease, COVID-19. Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa Ngagula has been a Minister of Defense and Military Veteran since 2012. She became South African National Defense and Military Veterans Minister against a background of the notorious arms deal corruption scandal. Billions of rands were lost and never recovered. Nobody was held accountable. It became just normal in the ruling party. Minister, you should have known better that your term of office in the Department of Defense will always be under scrutiny. The 2011 Military Veterans Act was established to address the wellness of military veterans and their dependents. It is 9 years to date, wherein the Department of Military Veterans cannot manage and establish a credible database of military veterans. Their dependents of school-going age cannot access institutions of learning because of the failure of the department to pay institutions on time. The few that manage to enroll remain unsure of their future, as the department has signed a pact with the most untrustworthy NSFAS bursary scheme, which currently has failed ordinary students who have been expelled from rented student accommodations and forced to abandon their studies in the middle of the academic year. Non-statutory forces from the ranks of APLA, Mukonde Wesizwe, Azanla remain homeless, begging for accommodation and renting in shacks. A former APLA combatant, namely Mkhulile Prince Mabandla, just to name one amongst many fighters, is a victim of a flawed database and incompetence of the department. These men and women who engaged the nonsensical, brutal apartheid regime, they were once praised and worshipped when declared government crumbled under heavy artillery from such honorable fighters who were on the picket lines. You are today in parliament being chauffeur-driven with security guards while they suffer under your command structure. The SANDF spent almost 900 million rands on food and catering per annum. Guess what? Investec is the one supplying food to your department. The department established a project called Kubatlala. The purpose of the project was to create employment in the food value chain and produce enough food that could also benefit the needy and the country. Resources were available to kickstart
for zoonotic diseases and must therefore be.
1 minute, honorable member. Honorable members, mute your mics, please.
Okay.
You may proceed.
The purpose of the project was to create employment in the food value chain and produce enough food that could also benefit the needy and the country. Resources were availed to kickstart the project. There has never been an impact study conducted and it's also a failed project, yet millions of rands were spent. There are almost 73,000 soldiers deployed to help thousands of police to curb the scourge of COVID-19 infections. To date, there are 394,948 COVID-19 infected people, which is a clear indication our soldiers are nowhere near to defeat the virus. Minister, you failed to rejuvenate the SANDF. You failed to renew the aging military hardware and vehicles. The only military hospital in Tshwane is in a dilapidated state. Roofs are leaking on rainy days. Medical equipments are dysfunctional and old. The same soldiers you pride yourselves are succumbing to the disease due to poor maintenance of the health infrastructure. The soldiers' military accommodation is inhabitable. The Tshwane military base is a typical example of such horrendous accommodation. The list is long to mention here. Minister, you were the one agreeing with your subject generals who contemptuously emphasized that they listened to no one but only to Mr. Ramaphosa. They vowed to react when provoked by unarmed civilians. Collins Khoza and others died in the hands of the soldiers and police who were armed with assault rifles. Instead of showing remorse, they attempted to manipulate the case, like the Marikana massacre, where there is no one to account for such atrocities. Minister, the military ombudsman is conflicted. It is the entity that aggrieves soldiers and personnel. Soldiers remain suspended and expelled unfairly, with no recourse. Reserve Force members in Mpumalanga won a case against the department to be reinstated, yet nothing is done to bring relief to them. Armscom has presented the capability and capacity to produce PPEs, sanitizers, and good quality ventilators. The department opted to purchase the ventilators in China. As a result, creating more employment for the Chinese in China. Just a fraction of the PPEs are manufactured locally. The rest is sold to the department by the monopoly industries, e.g. Investec. After careful considerations, the EFF reject the budget vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Member. Now I recognize Honorable Xaba from the IE. Honorable Xaba.
Thank you, Chairperson. All ministers, and all members. The Department of Defense is one of the few departments whose budget has been revised upwards to assist it in its support of the National COVID-19 Response Program. This function will remain a primary one as the positive cases continue to rise across the country. It is important to note that while the adjustment by 2.880 billion rand is significant and necessary, it does not align with the cost of the SANDF deployment. As the national state of disaster continues to be extended, the cost of maintaining our troops will climb proportionally. These costs include compensation, healthcare, protective equipment, and operational expenses associated with roadblocks and air support. The department has the enormous task of ensuring that our borders are free from illegal intruders who enter our borders without the necessary documentation. These borders cover both those that extend into the sea and those that stretch across the land, separating us from Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Namibia. The biggest challenge the department faces in executing its duties is the dilapidated condition of equipment such as the vehicles. It is difficult for the department to effectively secure our borders and fulfill other constitutional mandate without functional and essential tools of the trade. Responding to the challenges such as illicit cross-border trade, breaching of fences for ivory poaching and other unlawful conduct like vehicle hijackings need adequate support. Another necessary addition is up to the data technology apparatus at our borders. This requires finances. The IFP acknowledges and respects the country's financial situation. However, we believe the department should receive yet more financial support. This bearing in mind the ongoing negotiations between the department and Treasury. Issues such as the poorly resourced military hospital, which are forcing members to opt for private or public hospitals, must be addressed. Finally, socio-economic assistance for military veterans and their dependents will take a significant blow with the downward adjustment of 137 million rand from the Department of Military Veterans. At present, there are extremely limited mitigation options for educational and housing support, which form part of the primary DMV programs. We urge Treasury to consider this vulnerable group, especially over this period. The IFP welcomes and supports the budget. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I'll recognize Honorable Funevart. After Honorable Funevart, Honorable Shirley Makubela will take over. Thank you. Honorable Funevart.
Geachte voorsitter, ek wil begin om deur te sê dat for the last 15 years I've complained that the budget for the South African National Defence Force is inadequate. We see now that the budget for 2021 is about 52.4 billion rand, and with this additional budget, they receive another 2.38 billion.
Okay,
Die vraag wat ons egter vir onsself moet afvra, voorsitter, is dat die president het in terme van die grondwet gebruik gemaak van sy magte om lede van die Suid-Afrikaanse nasionale weermag te ontplooi in terme van die bestryding van die COVID-19 virus. Op 25 Maart het hy 2820 ontplooi, later tot ongeveer 76.000 van die Suid-Afrikaanse nasionale weermag.
Chairperson, order.
Honorable Thabo, what's the point of order?
We can't hear the honorable member. Do we have any translation facilities on this platform? Because we can't hear this language of the oppressors.
Now, on a point of order, Chairperson, on a point of order.
Honorable member, I'll request the front desk to assist me on that one. I'll come back to you. Honorable
on a point of order, Chair.
Proceed. Yeah, a point of order, Honorable Vessels.
Yes, Chairperson, that is not parliamentary, that what the honourable member just said, that it's the language of the oppressor. It's an official language of South Africa contained in the Constitution of South Africa, and I ask you to rule the member out of order. It is completely out of order and unparliamentary.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I will come back to you on that one. I still have to consult the front desk on that one.
Point of order, Chair.
Proceed. No, Honourable.
So, Chair, point of order.
I will come back to you. You may come
Yes, Chair, please can we do it in this meeting style?
Excuse me, repeat yourself. Honourable Funevart, you may proceed and conclude.
Chairperson,
Chairperson, I cannot conclude. That you must understand very clearly.
Sorry to interrupt, Chairperson. But Chairperson, there was a point of order raised, and you must rule on that. You cannot come back on it later. Thank you, Chair.
No, we haven't concluded the business of the day. I will come back.
Chairperson, I would like to support my colleague. Point of order.
We are not going.
Chairperson, a point of order there. Chairperson, it's a flawed ruling, and please put that on record. It's unacceptable, absolutely unacceptable.
Fine. I'll do that. Thank you very much. You may conclude.
No, point of order, Chair. Point of order, Chair.
Honourable Bongo, what's the point of order now?
Point of order, Chair.
It's on a separate issue.
No, on the point of order, it's not a flawed ruling. You have not yet ruled. The meeting is still on. So let's allow the chair to carry on, then he will make a ruling afterwards. The meeting is still on. So we can't record that this thing is a flawed ruling. When the
Chairperson, point of order.
Thank you, honorable members. May we proceed? Honorable Kunevat, may you conclude your debate?
Thank you, Chair. It seems some people doesn't want to hear the truth. Ek het gesê dat op die einde van die dag het die president omtrent die hele Suid-Afrikaanse nasionale weermag ontplooi teen 'n koste van ongeveer 6 miljard. Wat nie verstaanbaar is nie, is die feit dat toe die verspreiding van die virus nie hoog was nie, het hy omtrent die hele weermag ontplooi. Maar nou dat ons die piek begin bereik, nou het hy dit afgeskaal na 20,000 lede. Die vraag ontstaan, weet hy wat hy doen en is die besluite geregverdig? Chairperson, and if I speak about the COVID-19 situation, I refer to the shame of the South African National Defence Force. And the shame is Collins Khoza. And the question is, did we really expect something less than this brutal situation of Collins Khoza? Can you expect that members of the South African National Defence Force will act correctly if the chief of the SANDF, General Solly Choke, says on TV that the moment the SANDF moves in, it's a matter of skop and deer. I will refer as klap, skop and klap. I've referred this matter to the president because I sent him videos where the chief of the Defence Force saying that, ons sal skop and klap, and then a video where soldiers in a military vehicle says that we are going to skop and klap the people. And then a video where it exactly happens. Chairperson, it's a shame of the South African National Defence Force. And I think that the chief should have resigned. But I didn't hear either the minister or the president who repudiated him. Furthermore, and lastly, Chairperson, I want to say to the Honourable President, you made a huge mistake when you addressed the soldiers when they started the deployment to wear a uniform. The President, yes, is the chief in command of the South African National Defence Force, but you are the symbol of the military and the representatives of the people of South Africa. Dit was totaal onaanvaarbaar. U as president moet juist die waardigheid hou en die balans van die belange van die weermag aan die een kant en die van die mense. Agbare president, agbare minister, tussen of saam met u twee daar, het u die mense van Suid-Afrika in die steek gelaat. U het nie een aangespreek nie. Ek praat nie eers van die senior generaal wat minagtend in die portefeulje komitee opstaan en sê, I am not accountable to you, I only take my orders from the president. Why are those people still in the SANDF? We say in the Freedom Front Plus, that is totally ill-disciplined, unacceptable. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. As I promised that I'll come back to you, Honourable Members, before I hand over to Honourable Shelley Makubele. Honourable Xaba, the language of oppressor, I request that you withdraw. It's unparliamentary.
So they did not oppress us?
No, Honourable Mutle, I'm directing you to withdraw. Thank you.
I withdraw. But that does not mean they did
No,
not oppress us.
no, unconditionally.
I withdraw unconditionally, Chair.
Thank you.
About the...
Honourable members, now I recognize Honourable Xaba, then I'll hand over to Honourable Shelley Makubele. Honourable
Translation.
Honorable members, I don't know where we are. Must I start from the beginning, Chair?
Honorable Xaba, I recognize you are on the floor.
Start from the end.
Okay.
No, honorable members, point of order.
On Saturday, the committee was shattered at the news of the passing of one of its own, the late Honorable Mother Pindile Mula, a vibrant, capable, and hardworking member. We mourn her loss. Yesterday, we woke up to the sad news of the loss of one of our outstanding leaders, a colossal and one among a few on whose shoulders we stand today, is Twalande, Separankwe, Baba and Mdange. We mourn and celebrate the revolutionary life of Baba Mdange. A farewell, comrades. Honorable members, allow me to briefly reflect on the adjusted budget of the Department of Defense. I want to dedicate these remarks to the first Commander-in-Chief of the National Defense Force, President Nelson Mandela. The month of July marks the 102nd birthday of Madiba. It is befitting to remind ourselves of what Madiba said in 1995 on the occasion of the Defense Force Parade Day. Madiba said, open quote, "I want every member of the SNDF to know that my government and I regard the SNDF as a priceless national asset and a positive force for reconciliation. Keep up your magnificent work," close quote. We can confirm that the ANC on whose behalf I am communicating our support for the budget vote of the Department of Defense still maintain that the SNDF is a priceless national asset, as Madiba said 25 years ago. Early this year, the World Health Organization declared the coronavirus outbreak a global pandemic. This meant that countries of the world should individually and collectively mobilize both internal and external resources to respond to this global pandemic. Following the declaration by the WHO, our government, led by President Ramaphosa, took a correct and decisive decision to declare the national state of disaster. The national state of disaster and the subsequent nationwide lockdown were intended to implement extraordinary measures to manage the spread of coronavirus and save lives. The nationwide lockdown also provided an opportunity for our country, especially the health sector, to prepare for the surging numbers of infections. This has obviously come at great cost to the fiscals. Our country had to mobilize both material, financial, and human resources to combat this pandemic. Naturally, the declaration of national disaster, of national state of disaster, will require law enforcement. This means that our law enforcement agencies, including the SNDF, will avail its personnel and services to support and enforce the lockdown. When addressing members of the SNDF, the president said the Defense Force will engage in a mission save lives to defend our people against an invisible enemy in the name of coronavirus. The president reminded the members of the Defense Force of the oath they took of being faithful to the Republic of South Africa, to defend our people and subscribe to the highest values inscribed in the Constitution of the Republic. He sent the Defense Force to support the police, work with them, walk among our people, and defend them against the virus. The release of the members of the SNDF for utilization by the Chief of the Defense Force in the fight against coronavirus was not the only deployment of the Defense Force. The President extended the deployment of troops already in the DRC and those serving in the Mozambican Channel. He dispatched the soldiers to Wuhan in China on a repatriation mission to repatriate the nationals who were caught up in the midst of the raging virus. We have 15 companies guarding our borders to ensure safety of our people. We salute our men and women in brown. The Air Force is also involved in delivering supplies in the fight against coronavirus. In addition to this, members of the military health services have also been deployed to provide medical support in various parts of the country. while the engineering section puts its engineering skills at the service of other sister departments and municipalities. The Navy is on standby to ensure that the maritime route is not violated and marine resources overexploited during the lockdown. This continues to put pressure on the budget of the department. These deployments of the Defense Force will obviously require resources. The Portfolio Committee interrogated the adjusted budget allocation. Overall, the Department of Defense has received a net increase in its budget allocation, but still short of addressing the compensation of employee costs. That is a concerning matter as a result of successive years of budget cuts. These increases for personal protection equipment and operational costs and other costs associated with roadblocks and air support. We note the impact of COVID-19 and lockdown on AMSCO and the local defense industry as a whole, as well as the Castle Control Board. The lockdown has affected these institutions negatively. We welcome the consideration by AMSCO to suspend the performance bonus for the current financial year, among other measures to absorb the budget cut. We welcome the additional financial support offered to the CCB, though it does not address the going concern status of the council. We wish to convey our appreciation to the Minister for this gesture. We also wish to Dr. Kulube well on his retirement. The ANC supports the vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I now invite and recognize the Honorable Deputy Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, the Honorable Makwetla. Deputy Minister.
House Chairperson, thank you very much for the opportunity. Allow me to recognize the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, Honorable Nosbiwe Mapisa Ngakula, and the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Defense and Military Veterans, Honorable Xaba, and the Joint Chairperson of the Joint Standing Committee on Defense, Honorable Jerome Make, members of the Portfolio Committee on Defense and Military Veterans and Joint Standing Committee members. The Secretary for Defense, Dr. Sam Kulube, the Chief of the South African National Defense Force, General Shoke, and the Chiefs of Services and Divisions. The Acting Director General of the Department of Military Veterans, Mrs. Nontobeko Mafu. Colleagues, honorable members, lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing, leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. The words of the sage American poet Longfellow, Henry Longfellow, capture the thoughts of many in our country and across the world today, who have come to know the legend of Comrade Andrew Muketi Mweti Mlangeni, the very last of the Rivonia trialists to depart from the world of the living. Every generation must recognize and embrace the task it is peculiarly designed by history and by providence to perform. Regarding this view, Andrew Mlangeni is co-accused and leader in the Rivonia trial. Former President Nelson Mandela had this to say, and I quote, "We tried in our simple way to lead our life in a manner that may make a difference to those of others," unquote. Allow me, Chairperson, therefore, to join Minister Mapisa Nakula in dedicating my remarks this afternoon to the memory of Ntate Mlangeni, together with his comrades in arms who possessed the will to die for their ideals. In the face of brutal repression and massacres, they displayed what Chief Albert Lituli referred to as the courage that rises with danger. In this context, Andrew Mlangeni had the distinct record of having been among the first 6 Black South Africans to be trained in modern warfare and to carry guns half a century since the last defeat of African societies in the wars of resistance to colonial conquest. Honorable members, let me take this opportunity to congratulate Honorable Minister Nosviwe Mapisa Ngakula on the courageous way in which she is rallying her family to recover from the deadly coronavirus, and also wish a speedy recovery to the Acting Director General of Department of Military Veterans, General Derek Mukwege. The supplementary budget we are debating today is an epitome of the unprecedented situation countries across the world are confronted with. The COVID-19 pandemic is the greatest public health and resultant economic emergency facing our country and humanity in peacetime history. It is laying bare the high levels of poverty and inequality prevalent in South Africa, leading to massive unemployment and suffering. Just as COVID-19 came at the worst moment in the performance of our economy, characterized by a GDP that had contracted for 3 consecutive quarters, up to Q1 of 2020. The same can be said about the state of our military establishment in our country. The defense budget has been on a downward spiral for the last 2 decades. It has now reached a stage where very hard questions must be asked. What the COVID-19 pandemic has also sharply exposed is the constrained capacity for disaster management in our country. The question we must ask is, with the magnitude of disasters that we now know can possibly befall us in future, should disaster management still be located outside the military? Military organizations globally are today increasingly designed to respond to contemporary threats over and above traditional deployments. In this regard, the national disaster facing us, whose worst moment is by all indications still ahead of us, is a lived experience which reminds us that military capacities and readiness are not a challenge you can address in your hour of need. When disaster strikes, you are limited to using only what you already have. You don't have time. Rather, just as in life, you don't take life insurance because there is a death. You take a life insurance in anticipation of death. For the South African defense industry, the declaration of the state of national disaster and the subsequent lockdown could not have come at the worst moment, as the sector was already caught in a whammy of a declining defense budget, a seriously challenged DNL, and constrained exports due to various challenges that included objection to end-user certificates by key client nations. To make matters worse, COVID-19 is further aggravated by a terrible twin called junk status bestowed upon us by the ratings agencies. Members will take note that AMSCO's Corporate Plan 2020 reviewed the revenue generation and cost management targets and adjusted AMSCO's group's budget allocations for the 2020-2021 financial year as part of the Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2020 tabled on the 24th of June. Among measures to limit the shortfall is the freezing of salaries, voluntary severance packages, and retrenchments if there is a reduction in transfer payments in the following years. The Castle Control Board of the Castle of Good Hope has worked passionately to promote the establishment by participating in several prestigious national and international fora. However, this heritage center has the potential to flourish if repositioned by presenting its place in history objectively, transparently, and legitimately. It is the only dramatic edifice of colonial encroachment and military authority we have available. It is in a league of its own. As an education center about the not so pleasant history of the so-called Cape of Good Hope and cut loose from the Department of Defense, it can flourish as a center of memory and serve a much bigger purpose. The budget of the Department of Defense and Military Veterans for the financial year 2020-2021 was originally finalized at 683 million rands. This was intended to compensate the plus minus 170 employees and to continue providing the limited assistance to military veterans in areas where policy exists. A cut of 137 million has been effected to the budget of the department. It now stands at 546 million. Several targets around some of the benefits have been revised down as a result of these cuts. Most noticeably, it is the decrease of about 90 million in the allocation to Program 2, that is socio-economic support. The real impact of this cut is still to be ascertained, because these cuts are also based on spending patterns of the department in previous years. It may well be that the department was still headed for another year of underspending if these cuts were not effected. The chronic shortcoming of the department still remain poor planning. Only improved planning and the availability of adequate skills will ratchet up spending. Secondly, there are possibilities that with poor alignment of policies, thrashed out, and diligent collaboration with sister departments, some of these benefits can be delivered with the help of line function departments using their own resources. It gives me pleasure in this regard to announce that with the help of the Department of Defense, we have reached an agreement to provide medical services to military veterans and their dependents who are on the DMV database for COVID-19 related medical conditions. Relevant information in this regard will be communicated shortly. The biggest handicap in looking after military veterans is the absence of a fully established department. 10 years later, the department remains a rudimentary structure in every way we want to look at it. The 4 million cut to program administration from the setting up of provincial offices is unfortunate. Nevertheless, it must remain a priority for which savings must be realized in order to address it. Chairperson, honorable members, in view of time, may I take this opportunity to again join Minister Mapisa Nqakula in paying tribute to the one and only Secretary for Defense, Dr. Sam Gulube, alias Scientist Manifesto, for a mission well accomplished. He has undoubtedly set the standard very high in assisting the Department of Defense.
Honorable Deputy Minister, unfortunately, your time has expired.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize the honorable member from UDM. Honorable from UDM. Honorable member from NFP.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Thank you very much. Let me start off by saying that the National Freedom Party will support the adjustment budget tabled here today. Thank you very much, Minister, and your entire team for the presentation that you have made. But let me also pay tribute to the late Collins Kosa that was lost his life in an incident that took place. But what it does call for is to ensure that there's greater accountability with law enforcement, be it the South African National Defence Force, Metro Police, South African Police Services. Yes, I think what we must note is this: for year after year, the budget for this particular department seems to be reducing. And that tells us that indeed we might have a problem because we are not preparing for any eventual disasters that may come about. And like our previous colleagues have said, disasters come at any time and we need to be prepared for that. And let me also add that there are lots and lots of, let alone international, but domestic threats in the country. And that is why we need to have the South African National Defence Force equally ready. I want to also highlight the challenges that are faced, particularly by the Khoi and San community and the Khoi and San Self-Defense Unit, who were never given an opportunity to be part and parcel of the South African National Defence Force. And I'd like the Minister to really look into these things and see at some stage whether they can actually be accommodated. Now, Honorable House Chair, my problem is this, that while the South African National Defence Force have been deployed to assist in this, ensuring that the COVID-19 regulations are implemented and there is a high level of compliance. Remember, most of our infections are emanating from the townships at the moment. And I find an absence of the South African National Defence Force, together with all law enforcement in these areas. So I want to call for this thing to be strengthened, particularly into these areas, to ensure that the curfew that is put in place by government and regulation, the stringent regulation that are put, are complied with. So we're calling on the department to play a more active role in ensuring that does actually happen. What we've noticed previously is when the South African National Defence Force were deployed in the townships, in the Cape Flats, what happened is they were working in isolation to the South African police services in the interviews that we have done. So I think there needs to be greater collaboration between the South African police services and the South African National Defence Force, who have been provided with additional budget by, as a result of the president's announcement that the South African National Defence Force will be deployed into these areas to assist, particularly with this COVID-19 pandemic that we have before us. The National Freedom Party supports this adjustment budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Sheikh Imam. I now invite the Honorable A.J. Bucas.
Thank you, House Chair. Honorable members, citizens of South Africa, we want to extend our deepest condolences to all those who have lost loved ones. Chair, the African National Congress supports the budget allocation for the Department of Defense and Military Veterans. The special adjustment budget set out the government's initial economic and fiscal response to COVID-19. It fast-tracked normal processes to provide resources to frontline services, provincial and local government, as well as households with a focus on the most vulnerable South Africans. The revised budget also underlines the government's commitment to stabilize finances. The reprioritization of the budget is outlined by Treasury in main for performing essential services relating to COVID-19 response. The committee appreciates that the Defence Force engaged in Operation Otela as contribution by the Defence Force in the fight by government against COVID-19. Voorzitter, in die lig van die hersiende aangepaste begroting, wil ons eerstens die regering verseker dat ons trots is om geassosieer te word met die Suid-Afrikaanse weermag. Die rol wat die Suid-Afrikaanse weermag veral gedurende die afgelope tyd gespeel het, vir beveiliging sowel as met die nakoming van COVID-19 regulasies, het ons trots gemaak. Reeds omdat ons in regering is om lewens te red en veilige gemeenskappe te verseker. Agbare Groenewald, ek dink ook ons moet meer op die positiewe reflek van dit balanseer, verseker die slegte uit. We must, however, be cautious when it comes to the responsible spending of these funds. As an oversight committee, we will make sure that we monitor the spending as well as complying with the procurement processes and timeous responding. We will also make sure that those who are deployed far from home, safeguarding our borders, have the resources to be effective and efficient, because the ANC is a caring organization. The department must conclude the policies and standard operating procedures and put measures in place to strengthen their internal controls. Honorable Chair, one of the entities the lockdown affected immensely is the Castle of Good Hope, as there was no income during this time because the castle relies on tourists for revenue generation. Although the Castle Control Board is one of the smallest public entities, its performance the past years demonstrated that it punched far above its weight. It's a heritage body that is legally mandated to preserve, protect, and promote the 354-year-old Castle of Good Hope under the slogan, bringing the people to the castle and taking the castle to the people. Therefore, we need to ask ourselves how we as government can utilize the castle as our venue of choice for our meeting and conferences while still helping to preserve, promote, and protect the aim of the castle. The CCB has changed the image of the castle from a symbol of armed colonial conquest, racist exploitation, and pain to one that is inclusive, welcoming, and healing. Its heritage programs are bringing together all the people of South Africa, men, women, and children. The castle brings people together to learn about the history of South Africa, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The CCB has now truly become a voice for history, heritage, and culture. Therefore, we want to thank the Minister for listening to our plea to assist the castle, and also the noble gesture of the castle to send back the money that they get from the UIF. Honorable Chairperson, the Department of Defense has statutory bodies, and I think we must find a way to promote these bodies. It will assist and it will make—
Honorable Bucas, unfortunately, your time has expired.
Oh, in conclusion, Chair, we support the budget.
Honorable, we now invite the honorable member from AIC. Honorable member from AIC. I now invite the honorable member from COPE. Honorable member from COPE. I now invite the honorable member from PAC. The honorable member from PAC. I now invite the honorable member M. Modise from the ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, fellow South Africans. As we debate Budget 23 of Defense during the birth month of Utata Nelson Mandela, we remember his words when he said, I quote, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." The presentation of the 2020 budget and its respective votes is an instrument to finance the implementation of the policies of the African National Congress as the governing party. It enables us to fulfill our constitutional obligations and international commitments. The budget allows us to fulfill the promise of the masses of the people of creating a better life for all. Chairperson, the objective of the Military Veterans Act, among other things, is to improve the quality of life of military veterans and their dependents so that they may realize their socio-economic progress. The Act also seeks to recognize and honor military veterans in life and remembering them in death for their sacrifice on behalf of the nation. The principle which this Act is premised on is that of ensuring that as a nation, we honor our heroes and heroines. Military veterans have devoted their lives in the defense of our nation. They contributed to the assurance of our sovereignty as a country. The COVID-19 and the nationwide lockdown has had an impact on the socio-economic conditions of all of us as South Africans and many around the world. The Department of Military Veterans has also not been spared of the socio-economic reality. The budget reprioritization has also affected the administration of the department, which will impact on the program of the Workplace Skills Plan, also on the funding of the statutory bodies such as SAMVA, the Advisory Council, and the Appeals Board. We note the mitigation measures proposed by the department, and we are in full support of the proposal to further engage with National Treasury on the funding model for statutory bodies. The hope is that necessary interventions will be developed to address the shortfall. Chairperson, we also note the slow growth of our country's economy, which has had a negative impact on the defense budget. There is a growing concern that the SANDF is in a critical state of decline, and the consequences of the budget cuts translates to the decline of the SANDF capabilities. We are also concerned about the possible closure of the Special Defense Account. The country cannot afford to lose its sovereign capability, and as the ANC, we want to state it clearly that we do not support the closure of the SDA. No country in the world can function with a poor and weak defense force.
We strongly call for the special defense account to remain and be funded adequately. Our support for this revised budget vote is not a blind support. We are conscious of the challenges which the adjustment has on the department, but we are hopeful that the mitigating factors identified by the department will yield the desired outcome. The ANC supports the revised budget vote. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now invite the Honorable MGE Hendricks from Al Jamaa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, it is very comforting to see the Minister of Defense in high spirits. Al Jamaa prayed for her recovery and her husband's recovery, and our prayers were answered. We support this budget, and we don't know how the Minister can keep the country safe with so little money. So she's doing a great job, Honorable Chair, to give us a peace of mind. However, I want to bring to the attention of the Minister that we have many sailors at the Simonstown Naval Base. When their children reach 18, they have to leave the base because there's no accommodation. And also, Honorable Chair, their grandchildren and their children have to live in the nearby Masiphumeleli informal settlement where the African side lives in sewerage and sleeps in sewerage. Al Jamaa has a signed petition of 1,000 sailors, including an admiral, asking for assistance with housing. There are enough land available to house them. They earn enough monies to pay their bonds, but they obviously want land near Simonstown. They call it the far south. And that is the last white outpost in South Africa, so it's very difficult to get land. So we are going to approach the Minister to speak to the Public Works to release the land, and so that these sailors can also have the benefit of owning a house. It doesn't mean if the army provides you with a house that you mustn't have a house in your name in your own deed of sale. But we are going to approach the Minister and we will take it forward. Lastly, Honorable Chair, we know about the problems in Mozambique and the concerns about ISIS. The Minister must remember that she is fighting America and Zionists and apartheid Israel and not the Muslim community. The Muslim community in South Africa is the most peaceful community in the country. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now invite the Honorable TCR Walters.
Honorable Chair, when applying our minds to the budget for this department, we use the following criteria. Firstly, the armed forces of any country, according to author James F. Dunnigan, can be described as, open quote, one more bargaining chip in a state's international diplomacy. If war comes, the armed forces have failed in their primary purpose, to appear too strong to be successfully attacked, close quote. Secondly, and differently put, our military has a constitutional role in protecting both our human and economic resources. Thirdly, our military has to support our police and emergency services within a very carefully circumscribed constitutional framework in situations of emergency and disaster. None of the above, given our current geopolitical and internal settings, are nice to haves or non-essential, to use the parlance of the day. Honourable members, applied to our context, it means that a basic minimum capacity and strength for the SANDF is a non-negotiable, and any budget that either underfund our military or siphons off resources from the core strategic needs cannot be supported. A desire for a well-supported military does not therefore equate to a desire for unnecessary expense, or a vanity project, or simply an ongoing interest that needs to be satisfied. In fact, a credible military is a societal investment in conflict avoidance to avoid the concurrent human and economic costs of warfare or insecurity. It is a societal investment in protecting jobs and the potential for job creation. It is a societal investment in being prepared and being able to effectively respond to exactly the kind of crisis that our country and the world is currently facing. The DA, and let this be very clear, therefore supports a credible military capable of preventing human and economic costs and seeks a budget that speaks to that. However, and that brings me to another criteria, that does not mean that the DA supports expenditure for the sake of expenditure. What the DA does not support is luxury cars for top officers, the siphoning off of resources that detracts from a credible military. What it does not support is the long-term underinvestment in our military and misdirecting of its resources, whether it's corrupt arms deals, keeping supporters sweet, or very simply because of so short-sightedness. It does not support expenditure that, as a former colleague in Parliament, David Mayer put it, open quote, an armed welfare service, close quote, in a military where too many soldiers on the payroll do not fulfill the basic requirements of a credible military. It is that type of expenditure that in fact ensure that the basic criteria that the DA holds up when considering our support for this budget are not met. The DA cannot support a budget that slowly kills the constitutional mandate and strategic role for our military. And I also would like to, Chairperson, achtbare voorsitter, ek wil baie graag vir u bedank, en die voorganger bedank, dat u die achtbare bekes se huistaal ook beskerm het. En ek dink daar's 'n geleentheid vir die volgende spreker om verskoning te vra.
Honorable member, and unfortunately your time has expired. I now recognize the Honorable T.M. Mutle.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chair. I also wish to take a moment and follow the queue to convey our deepest condolences to the family of Isitalande, Comrade Enrum Langeni, and appreciate the role he has played with many others who departed before him in the liberation struggle. Their contribution is immeasurable. We also convey our condolences to Honorable Pindile Mula's family, friends, and the ANC at large. She was serving with us in the Joint Standing Committee of Defense. Her contribution to the liberation of our people and women's struggle in particular will never go unnoticed. May their revolutionary soul rest in peace. We will continue with the struggle precisely because the gap between the rich and the poor continues to widen every day as a result of land disposition. The ANC concurs with all the ANC speakers in this budget vote that we are in a situation of national state of disaster enforced through the national lockdown necessitated by the correct decision by government led by the ANC to ensure that our country mobilizes its resources in the fight against COVID-19. Ours is to ensure that we sharpen our ideological capabilities and never lose sight with the national democratic revolution. The motive forces of our revolution are still landless and poor. COVID-19 has deepened the socio-economic injustices, leaving majority of our people in dire poverty, with many of them homeless and millions unemployed. We stand here on behalf of the movement of the people, the African National Congress, to communicate our support for the revised budget vote of the Department of Defense and Military Veterans. We communicate the approval of this budget, well aware of that we are swimming in uncharted waters. As the President said, and I quote, "We are crossing the river by feeling our feet," close quote. Honorable Chair, we have seen how the deployment resulted in national dialogue on the conduct of soldiers. We are of the view that the leader of society, which is not, there's not any other leader of society except the ANC, has a huge responsibility to educate society about the role of the Democratic National Defense Force in terms of internal deployments and how they should relate with their own defense force without each of them, two parties, being antagonistic to each other. It is on the same breath that we call on the department to equally develop capabilities in this respect for future internal deployment. We have seen how opposition parties attempted to grandstand and pointed fingers at the ANC government. And even today, we have seen how they continue to do that. on casualties that occurred under this deployment, we must remind them that in a war situation, casualties are imminent, and we are not supporting any criminal act by soldiers, and they must account for any action that they undertaken against any prescripts of the law. The political postures of these opposition parties is worrisome, Honorable Chair. They seem to suggest that our people must be exposed to infection and their lives should not be protected under the pretext of the Bill of Rights. We wish to reiterate our support to members in uniform for the good work they are doing to protect and preserve lives of South Africans. On this score, we urge South Africans to cooperate with law enforcement agencies in enforcing the lockdown regulation as and when they evolve. The Defence Force is deployed to protect lives. We must reiterate that it is deployed to protect lives of South African people during this difficult period, not to do anything opposite. This requires the working together of the Defence Force with the people. We must acknowledge the frontline troopers are human and they put their life on the line for our survival in this war against invisible enemy. Honorable Chair, we are alive to the reports of allegation of heavy-handedness by law enforcement agencies as part of the operation during lockdown. This allegation have pointed to some members of the Defence Force. We derive confidence in the knowledge that the courts and the military ombuds office will assist in getting to the bottom of this allegation and that law will take its course. I want to put it on record that or straight that Honorable Murray has lodged a complaint on behalf of the Khoza family, and he couldn't provide the necessary documentation required by Ombudsman as he acted as a representative of that particular family, making it difficult for Ombudsman to proceed with investigation. But subsequently, the minister authorized that investigation. Honorable Mafanya's debate is misplaced. The Department of Military Veterans has got its own budget vote, and today we are not dealing with that particular budget vote. We need not to waste time entertaining him. He has proven yet again to be a political zombie of Honorable Malema. We must put it we must put
Chairperson, point of order. Point of order, Chairperson.
You are talking nonsense.
Can't talk nonsense like that. What are you talking about when you're talking about
Chairperson, point of order.
For a very long time.
Who are you?
Point of order.
We've been listening to this rubbish for a long time now.
Chairperson, point of order.
Don't do that.
Nonsense.
Don't force idea.
I recognize Honorable Mutle. Hold it. I recognize the Honorable Walters.
Chairperson, I believe it's unparliamentary to characterize a fellow member of parliament as a zombie. A zombie is an animated corpse. I don't believe that member is an animated corpse. I believe the ANC is an animated corpse. But I don't believe
Honorable Walters,
that is appropriate.
Point of order, Chair. Point of order, Chair.
That is not a point of order.
Everybody knows
out of order.
Chair, point of order on that zombie that has just spoken.
Honorable members, order. Order, honorable members.
Chair, we want to address that zombie that is calling us zombies. We want to address the zombie himself.
That is a reflection on a political party, and a reflection on a political party is not.
No, we mentioned Julius Malema.
Don't be biased. Don't be biased. Honorable Julius Malema is a member of
On a point of order, Chair.
Don't be biased. Take the point of order.
Honorable members.
The chair has made a ruling.
Honorable members, you are out of order. You cannot
scream
Chair,
like that. Can I address you?
You cannot scream. Honorable members, you cannot scream like that. You cannot all speak at the same time. I can only
then
recognize
give us a platform to speak.
You cannot all jump up. You cannot all jump up and expect me to recognize all of you.
My hand is up, Honorable Chair. How are you going to point? Can you recognize me, Chair?
Honorable members, you cannot all jump up and scream at me.
Yeah, I'm speaking. I'm speaking now. I'm speaking.
And want to be recognized.
Can the chair be respected, please?
Honorable member, I am on the platform. Honorable Mutle, can you withdraw the remarks of a zombie?
To Honorable Malema.
Honorable members, allow me to chair this session. Honorable Mutle, those comments are unparliamentary. Can you withdraw them?
I withdraw the zombie.
You are a zombie yourself.
Honorable members.
You see now what disrespected, yeah.
You see, honorable members.
It's just plain stupid in Parliament.
Honorable members.
You are muted, Chairperson.
You muted yourself now.
I have instructed the Honorable Mutle to withdraw, and he has withdrawn. Honorable Mutle, continue.
Thank you, Chair. We must put it in record that the challenges faced by the DOD cannot be reduced to minister, while we know that the main challenge is the declining budget.
Honorable Mutle, your time unfortunately has expired.
But how can it expire?
Your time has expired. Go.
Honorable members.
Chair, he was disrupted.
The minister is the political head of the defense.
He was disrupted.
Honorable members.
Your time.
That zombie from Sishiko.
Please,
those zombies.
Let's uphold
Can you control the
decorum of the sitting. Honorable members, let's observe the decorum of the sitting. Honorable members, order. I now invite the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And thank you, honorable members, for a constructive debate. Chairperson and honorable members, I welcome all inputs made by honorable members. I welcome concerns which have been raised with regards to the Defense Force. I welcome all observations which have been made by members of different political parties about our conduct of the Department of Defense. I want to assure honorable members that we do have a South African National Defense Force, part of the Department of Defense, which is committed to the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, and therefore committed to accountability, to civilian oversight. Chairperson, a matter of the COSA matter was raised, and I do not intend to deal with the matter, but I do want to assure honorable members and the South African public that there are processes in place other than the Board of Inquiry, which was completed some time ago. We have a joint investigative team consisting of both the police and the Defense Force. We have an investigation which is running parallel, which is being conducted by the military ombuds. With all of those instruments, there is no way in which anyone would want to cover up for what happened. Let us allow the processes to be completed. Let us allow for those structures to come and report to Parliament once the process has been finalized. Chairperson, a matter of the PPEs was raised, that some of the PPEs were ordered in China, while some of them, I think it was raised by honorable member, some were bought internally here. I just want to assure honorable members that there is regular interaction between the Military Command Council and the internal audit of the Department of Defense under my instruction.
I am closely monitoring what the department is doing with regards to ordering of PPEs, that we are monitoring the spending patterns, we are monitoring whether processes are being followed. We are also working very closely with AMSCO to assist us in our acquisition needs, Chairperson. Chair, there is a matter which was raised here by Honorable Hunevald, which is that of inadequate budget. And it is true that over the years, in fact, the matter of inadequate budget goes way beyond 15 years back, right from the beginning, from the onset, when the democratic dispensation was ushered in. One of the critical challenges of the democratic government was to ensure that the socio-economic imbalances of the past had to be addressed. And one of the areas, unfortunately, which were identified as an area where we could cut off was the budget, was the area of defense. Little did people anticipate, I think, that as the country grows and as democracy is becoming entrenched, as we become part of the global village and therefore part of various multilateral institutions, the obligations of the defense force would increase. We are part of the African Union. We are part of this region called SADC, and therefore, when decisions are taken with regards to a threat assessment, be it in the continent or in the region, you are bound to have South Africa being amongst countries which are in the forefront of dealing with that. Chairperson, and therefore, of course, all of us need to deal with the matter of the issue of budget discretion without any emotions. And I'm happy that the matter is a matter which has been dealt with by all political parties, because it is a matter that we need to address in a very sober manner. Chair, there's a matter which was raised in passing by honorable member, which was the matter of Simonstown. I've noted that, and it's a matter I would like to follow up with him and with the management. But he then goes on to raise a matter which is very important, and that is a threat to South Africa, which is a threat to the region, also a threat to the continent and the global village, that of terrorism, because he raises the matter of ISIS, for instance. And I do want to say that South Africa is committed to be part of all structures which discuss issues of terrorism, which discuss the threat of terrorism to our continent and to our region. And of course, South Africa is committed to all decisions taken by both the region and the continent through the African Union to condemn terror and to deal with issues of the threat to our country and our sovereignty.
Honourable Minister, unfortunately, your time has expired.
Thank you, Chairperson. I do want to thank all honourable members for participating in this budget and for your well wishes. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, honourable members. That concludes the debate in the business of the virtual mini-plenary session. The mini-plenary will now rise.
Zombie is zombie. Tell Father Christmas to be in order. Father Christmas must be in order. Father Christmas must be in order. Father Christmas.
Zombie is zombie.
Zombie ko ena
Zombie ako sisiyo.
Bloody zombie.
Zombie is zombie.